We are back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us. Lisa McCrady is with us from the MAC, or the Metro Action Commission, as I say. They do a great job helping people with various expenses during the holidays. I was telling her during the break that, you know, I go over at least during the holiday season at Thanksgiving to the Nashville Rescue Mission, help feed the folks there. And as you see the folks making their way through, many of them were those, I think, that were just living paycheck to paycheck. And a hard time came, whether it was through COVID, they lost their job, an illness, and they found themselves out on the streets. And so I was asking her, are some of them sometimes referred to you?
They are, and so they could come to us by a sister organization called the Metro Social Services, or other partners. And so as people are finding houses, because we don't really find the homes, so there are other organizations that'll help them navigate that space. And so once they find it, we potentially could help with deposits and first month's rent.
That's the biggest hurdle.
Depends. Yeah, it is.
When it's not just you think, okay, I got lucky, I found this apartment which would be very cheap in Metro, $500 a month. Well, moving in is not just that, right? What the expenses you just said? You got your first, maybe last month's rent.
And last.
You have a deposit, and keep in mind too, you got to hook up some utilities sometimes.
Absolutely.
So the initial outlay for anyone, even in a super affordable apartment, would be about how much?
It could be up to $3,000, $4,000, easy. You
don't realize it's not just I need to scrape together $500 to move into this apartment. No, up front there's a lot of money. So you can help them maybe with like a deposit, things like this?
Yeah, it kind of depends on the situation. Some organizations are better fit than us to help, because there's some other things that are happening within the organization. But definitely we are part of the conversation. Usually they will go to the sister organization, Metro Social Services, or some of the other organizations throughout the community, and they help with kind of the lead up stuff, the furniture, the finding the place, where's the best location as it relates to your job, and that type of thing. So other organizations do that. But when it's time to help with the deposits on getting into the place, or the rent, or a combination of both, the utility deposits, we definitely are at the table seeing if we are the best fit for a person to go through our program, so that we can help them with that fresh start. Being able to watch that materialize, especially when you see a father, a mother, or both with children coming in and just really, they work every day. So it's not the picture that some people may think that someone, they don't work or whatever. You have people go to work every day. And they just have had a situation where their houses, their housing has gone into jeopardy. And so to be able to walk through that with a person has been rewarding, because we're partnering with them on whatever's next in their life.
And the monies you provide, we should be clear, it's grant money. This is not money anyone ever has to pay back.
That is correct. That's correct.
Okay, so the level of need that you have to show to qualify for some of these programs, whether it's rental assistance or utility assistance, and maybe you can tell us about some of the other type of assistance that's available, but you have to be below the poverty line. What does it have to be?
So with the grant that we have now, it's at average medium income. And so what they looked at was, what is the average income for Davidson County? And it is based on that. So that's how the income piece. So you can actually make higher amounts than traditionally you would have had to be below in order to qualify. Because it's based on the
average here. In Davidson, it's probably a little higher than some other counties.
It is. It is. So which makes a lot more people eligible. We also need to see a demonstrated hardship. So with COVID, if you are in an impacted industry such as retail and hospitality and things, education, things that are the industries that were really hit really hard, transportation, that makes you eligible, because that's your hardship. If you received unemployment during this period of time.
I was going to ask you about that.
If you had a child that was learning virtually and you had to stay home and it altered your work environment. So it's really, really broad in order to show the hardship. And so that's one thing. So income eligibility, hardship, being behind in your rent, being a rentor. This particular funding that we're talking about, the emergency rental assistance, is only for renters. Not mortgages, but we do have a program that helps with that. But just not this one that I'm talking about now. So those are some of the kind of the higher, and for us being a resident of Davidson County.
Yeah, it has to be. And so is there, I don't want to put you on the spot too much, but like for a family of, say there's a parent and 2 children, how much can they earn a year roughly and qualify?
I think that's right about the 50,000
like around
per year.
50,000, which for a lot of people, and times change, but $50,000. Now that's not poverty line necessarily, but in Davidson County, how expensive it is, and that's with 2 children.
That's
right?
with 2 children.
So it could be in that realm. Now, if you're a single individual,
that's right around 46,000.
46,000
per year.
And I would imagine at that rate, there are a lot of people that can qualify.
Yeah, and we were happy that they did that, because again, that meant a lot of people could be eligible that traditionally would not. Some people had gone back to work, but being able to, say for instance, you went back to work, it's not likely that you have like $5,000 sitting there in my mom's turn doing nothing.
Right, right.
that you would be able to fork over immediately when you first start your job. So that's why it's really, really great that we were able to, that the federal government looked at that and said, some people have gone back to work, but they still have this need. And so for us to be able to jump in and help at that level has been great. The average benefit amount of going through the emergency rental assistance program is about $10,000 that we've been able to satisfy the debt for.
Yeah, and that's it. You're getting people out of debt.
We are.
Basically, is what it is. Because, I mean, if a single person's making $46,000 a year, if you're able to, be rational, you can live on that.
You can.
You can live on that. But the problem we ought to remember is someone's making that kind of money, but then they lost their job. And then they fell behind the game plan. That's what it's about, right? You have to show the need that the debt that you'd fallen out, maybe you lost your job, you got sick with COVID or something along those lines.
Exactly.
And but you could still qualify even if you're drawing unemployment, which, by the way, in Tennessee is awful. The amount of money you get. There was that federal supplement that pushed us up, but Tennessee is among the lowest nationally when it comes to what the state itself pays for unemployment. It's lousy. It's not, what is it, 217, basically, maybe a little more than that a week.
Yeah.
Well, that's not good.
It's not.
So you're not going to live on that. So that's where. What about seniors? Now, they're not necessarily folks who have lost jobs because maybe they've retired, but they're on fixed incomes. You have separate programs for them, or?
We do. I mean, even this program could help. So say,
what kind of hardship would hit a senior?
So a senior. So say, for instance, they couldn't get a ride to their appointments because the person couldn't. They couldn't be around a lot of people at one point. Right. And so the regular ride, they couldn't make it there. That's an hardship. They have a medical condition. They have COVID. They have, just so it's so expansive. And so we really appreciate being able to talk with customers and say, hey, that qualifies. So we're asking them, do you do this? Have you? And just listening to their stories and their not being able to get to their appointments or having to change their home care because someone in the home care circle has COVID. So there's a lot of different hardships that we could qualify a person to receive this funding.
Okay. And I don't know if it frees it up. Are there programs through MAC that deal with food, or that's separate? Because I would think, look, if you get them out of debt and help with this, then that frees up money that they can buy food. But are there programs for food with?
It actually is. So in the summer months, and more importantly, this past summer and the summer before, when school was down, and just access to food and just being able to have those additional expenses that parents had because children were at home, we have our summer food service program.
Reverend Fuzz has this wonderful pantry that he helps spearhead over at General Hospital, the food pantry. And some of the people there said now they're going to some of the homes with children because I didn't realize this, but they say a lot of children, the only solid square meal they get a day is the subsidized lunch they get at school.
That is correct.
And so all of a sudden, a lot of them have been staying home, right? Because of COVID. And they're missing that meal. So is that what you guys would try to target? You recognize now all of a sudden these families have to pay them.
Yeah, and we're also a part of the city's food security initiative. And so us and Second Harvest and Metro Schools, we meet weekly. We still do. We started at the beginning of the pandemic and we met all the way through. So the pandemic, then we had the snowstorm, then we had all this other stuff, the tornado and all this other stuff that happened in Davidson County. So we regularly meet and to make sure that we're poised and ready to meet the needs. Now, during the snow months, we couldn't get out to our families, so we partnered with the Metro National Police Department, the Sheriff's Department. They got in their cars and they could get around, pretty easier than we could. So they helped us with delivering meals to the actual places.
That's awesome.
When the children in our Head Start program were learning remotely, we had a weekly food delivery to our families who had Head Start and early Head Start children. So yes, we have our hands in a lot of things. We also partner with organizations such, again, as I said, Second Harvest. We even had Uber and Amazon helping us with deliveries. Yeah. Local restaurants, they were chipping in. And so it was just really, really cool to see Nashville come together. I'm a native Nashvilleian. So I was just so proud, you know, because this is what I've always experienced, even as a child. When there's something that's going on in Davidson County, you have a lot of people who spring to the ready and say, okay, what can I do? And it's not your usual partners. Who would have thought that Uber would be doing anything other than taking people around? They were taking food around for us.
Where'd you go to high school?
Whites Creek.
Okay, so you went to Whites Creek, and did you go to university here? Or?
No, I actually went to Austin P, just right up the street.
Okay, so you still were in Tennessee.
I was still in Tennessee, then came back for my master's, did Tribeca.
Oh, okay.
So I've just always been around here.
How long now have you been at Mac? And like Cynthia Kroom, how long has she been executive director there now?
Dr. Kroom has been there 21 years.
Yeah,
I've been there 20.
Okay, so in that amount of time, and having grown up here, I'm just curious, as we go to a break, in your mind, is the need still always as great? Has it increased, or has the type of need changed? What would you say in recent years?
The face is different, if I can answer it that way. So it's not, it's never to me has been your traditional single parent and that kind of stuff. It's everyone. And especially with this pandemic, you saw people who have never needed assistance before at a greater level. And we were seeing even more of that even before the pandemic. So, you know, it's just really the faces change, the situations change. And so for us being able to look at what's happening in our community, the affordability of housing has changed and it's more expansive now. And then the affordability and availability. So, you know, it's just a lot of different things, you know, that we're looking at right now that I don't know that we've had to pay attention to this great level of degree.
I think over the last decade, they say the same thing at the rescue mission. It has changed. The faces used to be in the days 2-3 decades ago. It was a lot of times older men or just older males, oftentimes with some kind of substance abuse or something like that. Now it is families and children, and there's just no doubt there's more need, but there's also more services available that you didn't even imagine back in the day, like she just said, Uber helping deliver. Listen, we'll take a break. When we come back, you know, we'll have our final segment with our guest. Among other things, I just want to make it really clear to the people who are likely watching this morning on how they go about applying. The easiest way to do it, what to do, how to decide what they have to pull together, all of that, whether it's you or you know of someone. But trust me, there's probably a lot of people out there that can benefit from some of the programs at MAC, and they don't know it, which is why we do this show and why she comes on and tolerates me. We'll take a break and be back right after this.